continuing live coding series, creating a JavaScript app. We are working in the Jerry Life web app, adding user, basically group-based access control. We've been working on this pull request for quite a while, relatively speaking, and I think we're close to the end of it. Essentially, we're remodeling this app, so going from kind of a single occupancy model where just one group of users has access to the whole system. Now we're adding role-based access control, so users only see the relevant information, specifically the homes and residents to which they're assigned. If I add another home here and I refresh the page, so this user now has access to more information, in particular the residents assigned to the homes that are part of the groups. So this is the crux. Users and homes are both assigned to groups, and when there's a match, then you get access to the information underneath that group. So let's see if we get our pull request open here. User group assignment. We had one more round of quality assurance, so we've been working on this since March 10th. We got 75 commits. Almost 40 files changed. And essentially had an earlier round of QA and the second round. And basically, Shaylee indicates there may be some inconsistency in the way these are groups, or the way groups are displayed. So I'm trying to replicate this or reproduce this. At the same time, I've also noticed that not all the residents are appearing for this user in the select menu, or at least not the same set of residents, sorry. So for simplicity, I'm going to just assign this person to one group and everything under Tom Miller. Tom Miller is the name of the group, and I've renamed all the homes to Tom Miller 1, Tom Miller 3, and Tom Miller 2. We also have an issue where these seem to be alphabetical, but we'll have to figure out separately whether we want to sort the home names in a meaningful way, or if just coincidentally alphabetical is fine, given that you can filter. So while I'm here, I might think whether this should be, this has been a sort of neglected feature, this feelings feature. I'm not sure how much it's in use. At the very least, the list of residents should be the same, but it really would be nice to use the same interface to select the residents, just for consistency. But the first thing is, let's get these residents in the display. So we're going to dig in to the code here. So all of our client-side code is in one big folder. Client-side meaning just templates and things that render in the web browser. There's also a server component, things that run on the server to get data to the client mainly, either reactively in publications or usually in methods. Increasingly, we're sending data to the client via methods, particularly for the charts. And then migrations, which apply to the database collections. And so when we go here in the client, we've got probably some crufty stuff I can clean up. Old packages we're no longer using. I'm not even sure what this is, to be honest. get to cleaning up the cruft later, but I could probably just delete this in this pull request, this metrics graphics library we were using on the resident page. It's now been deprecated in favor of Plotly.js. It's been removed. Yeah, all these charts are now powered by Plotly. I really like the metrics graphics ethos, the way it's designed, but the charting library is way too, like, just limited, and I don't want to have a project where we maintain all these charting libraries. So this probably should have been done in a separate pull request, but I do try to clean things up when I discover them so that I don't forget. In fact, we had a task relating to this, so I'll try to avoid removing more charting libraries in this pull request. So we're going to go to the feelings view. And so essentially we have this form called new and an auto form which renders the form HTML for us. So if we look at the template, the most of the markup here is relating to displaying a bootstrap modal and localization strings and getting data into the client. So subscribing to homes and residents, which are displayed here for grouping purposes. Now I think there's just a method on the server side that gets the data in the right form for this resident select. And I can probably just use for this to keep things in sync. Let's take a look at the JavaScript here. So uncreated, so this is actually using, this hasn't been touched in a while. Let's see. Well, I guess it has 10 days ago. Swap out subscriptions for user visible documents. Usually when I come and refactored these 2 years ago, so this file was touched, but this line, I think, maybe the linter grabbed that. This should be on created typically now. It's a closure. That's the recommended syntax now. Current user visible resident, current user visible homes. So yeah, these are the new subscriptions we've added in the process of this pull request. Let's take a look at this helper. Resident options, yeah, so this is doing the client side. It's a big old function. It's doing some client side stuff. Mapping over homes, return home ID, resident select, grabbing residents from that home. So essentially it's a big duplicated block of code, which I believe comment out and have the whole thing break for just a moment. And the rest of these helpers are relating to kind of keeping state, client state in the template instance and passing it back. We're in the process, early stages, but we're porting this over to Vue.js. One of the nice things about Vue is you have this reactive data context. So anytime you change that data, it'll change in the template directly. With Meteor and Blaze, what we've had to do, anytime we wanted a reactive context, we've had to define these explicitly define reactive variables. And then to get that reactive variable back to the template, we've just had to have these functions that essentially just wrap it. It's just really redundant, and it's throughout our whole code base through many templates. So that's one of the nice things. I'm looking forward to getting that. It's a better developer experience, I believe, just not to have so many kind of redundant layers. Okay, so it looks like I'm not gonna have to really touch this other code. It looks like it's been linted recently, perhaps, using cons 2 years ago, actually. And just some events. So essentially what I'm going to try to do is get rid of all this client-side aggregation and switch to a server-side method, which will essentially, I'll probably still use this helper. Like as I mentioned earlier, I have to use these reactive variables to pass data to the client. So let's see if we can locate that. And if I go to the activities form, let's see how we get those activities. This is the activities table. Activities form is here. I think if I check form.js, current user visible residents, current user visible residencies, you still have to subscribe. Dang, I'm doing a client-side mapping here. Let me see. Form type. Resident select options. Oh, yeah, still mapping it here too. So I'm going to try to move these both to the server. Let me just see if I just copy this block of code, if it just fixes the feelings resident selector. The reason I'm going to do that is to make sure that sharing them is going to be good enough. So here it is, resident options. Boom. Save that. And so I think it already rebuilt. Didn't work, let me think. Another thing is that we're using different form widgets. So what this is expecting value label combinations might not be what the DOM is expecting, more or less. So it's auto form, takes resident options. Let me go ahead while we're here and just try to reuse this same select widget, since the data are already in that form. A little bit of T. So kind of two birds with one egg. I mean, this is probably one of the last large pull requests, and before our 1.0 release, we're sort of backwards incompatible after this. It's a really big release, so I think including some maintenance is justifiable. So I've got a new feeling HTML and JS, and then the activity form HTML and JS. Let's take a look at this activity form HTML. So really it's just the same. It's an AF field input here for activity form, feeling, activity, feeling. Let me get these grouped together. Put the form first. Okay, so we got AF field input here, AF field input here. Yeah, so same deal. Multiple true. This is a singular select. What this will do, this AF field input will render the DOM select option, taking in the data. Options, resident options, resident options, resident options. It is quite a complicated method. And here I can actually do this in more or less. I can chain this map on that. There might be some ways I can improve the code, but first let me just use the duplicate code and then try to figure out a way to share. I'm not sure of a clean pattern for sharing client-side methods, client-side functions. Aside from just, I don't have a clear pattern to follow in this project. I have like a lib folder. So I'll probably try to move them to the server. But it's not clear to me why it's not working on this. The homes part is. This is just regular HTML options, home resident ID. Check my subscriptions, maybe that's the problem. Residents 9, but they're not making it into the DOM. And then just out of curiosity, I want to check how I'm rendering the form widget. That's the feelings auto form. Here it is, slim select, or flat picker. Here we go. So if I go new feeling form, auto form, hooks, unrendered. So what this is checking that we're in the right form. So more than likely just use all of this. It is template specific, so because you're looking for the exact form. Flat pickers for dates, slim select is for multi-select. Just remembering here. Yeah, flat picker, it's the calendar widget that we're using. Alright, there we go. New feeling form, unrendered, template instance. So I need to find out where this is used. Slim select. So I don't need any of the flat picker related stuff. So resident ID is the name of the form. Field, singular. So let's see just at least if that worked. So rebuilding it is. Yep, so we got the flat picker here. Good. Slim select, sorry. what's up with the template data? The data coming into the form. What I'll have to do is kind of work my way up here. So I know this is going to be, I'm pretty confident this will be empty. It'll have homes without any residents, but that might not be the case. So let's just start here and work our way back up. So we have 3 homes and 0 options in each home. There we go. Okay. So what about this? Home resident IDs. This could be the problem. Home residencies doesn't exist. Current user visible residence. Also, this might need the departed argument. Let's find out. Oh, I think the problem is we're not subscribed to the residencies. This was done before the residencies feature was added. Which you need, it's just like the sort of the peanut butter that holds the breads together. Look at that when I was checking the mini Mongo. There we go. Yeah, that was it. Missing publication. So good. Basically, line of code, duplicating this resident options function will fix that somehow. Cool. Yeah, I think the nice thing about moving to Vue.js is our state management, event handling might be a little bit cleaner. Well, we'll still be, instead of doing reactive variables, we'll just be doing assignment directly to the template instance. And I might be able to consolidate these down to one event handler. Okay, but let's take a look. So first let's commit this, as it's basically working. This is rendering slim select and lint. It's not shared duplicate. That's good enough. All right, now how to do this sharing. If I move to the server side, I don't need these subscriptions, but I'll have to rewrite this method to be user-centric, so that it only gets the, oops, I left the console. It only gets the correct data. Which might not be too hard. I've got the methods in place there. One thing with server methods is they are asynchronous, meaning I'll have to wait in the template. I'll just use a reactive variable, and when it exists, then I can render the form. Yeah, this is pretty, well, so to speak, flaky. It's just finding all the homes that are available, so it just really depends on these subscriptions to manage it. And these kind of queries can bleed over and get all sort of, well, it gets pretty confusing. It's like strange action at a distance type stuff, because these subscriptions, they go into the same bucket in the mini Mongo collection in the client side, and sometimes it's mysterious. You'll have extra documents there, homes that are coming in from different template elements that are rendered. So it's a little bit challenging. Not that it's, well, it's not horrible, but it can be confusing when you're debugging some of these things. So just following this train of thought, if I move this to a server method, then I would comment these out, create a template instance, reactive variable called resident options. And this is where I would just like to have, this as direct data property. Alright, so this is on created. Then we need to be considerate of when the DOM will render. If the data can just kick off right off the bat, if I can just in the onCreated put the Meteor method, I think so. Pretty explicit, but basically that'll be a server method, and it'll be used directly for these select widgets. I've also been taking this approach with different charts. You can prepare the data on the server side that's tailor-made for the chart. So the first argument is error, and then the data that you're going to send back from the method. Then what we can do is say set this to the value of the response here, and then I can inside of here at the very end of it, and I'll grab all this code in just a moment, just get the data, get the value of that data. Ah, yeah, and we are sorting it there. Yeah, I think we're gonna lose that. Let's see how it works. this is prettier, doing some formatting for us. I guess that's not too bad. So since we're getting more or less residents, I believe we can just put this in the methods, the residence methods on the server. I'll come back here for the name in just a second. What do we got? Ooh, something happened here. Get user visible active resident IDs helper. It looks like we've already got a method here, so let's see if we can just reuse this. Okay, there's that. Okay, so that's empty. Let's try to trace this in the client to see what's going on. It might be that it's in the wrong structure. That's correct. Alright, so. Okay, template instance not defined. That's the easy fix. A little bit of inconsistency in the Meteor APIs. It would be nice if this would give me a template instance as this, but I think it changes. Sometimes we have to use template.instance, sometimes we have this available, and I've just been trying to rename it so we have consistency. Alright, that's working good. So that simplifies our client code. It seems to render it fine, and I do have a little bit of problems with the activity here. Let's see. I think what's happening, it's not reactive, it's this DOM. It's trying to instantiate this UI widget, and it can't find it because it hasn't been there's no data there, there's no element there until this data comes back from the server. So I'll just have to find a way to defer this real quick. One way I could do it might be to do the slim select in this callback function. Essentially the auto form I don't know how reliable this is going to be because that data could come back fast. So this is still an uncreated, so the DOM is not available. This asynchronous event can be really fast or really slow. I'm thinking, it's a reasonable guess that the DOM will render by the time this data comes back, but it's not a guarantee. So there's a certain chance that this element won't be there for the slim select, and that's the problem we're seeing. I think things are just broken. Let me get my imports in line. I close down the file. That's not what I'm trying to do. I can guarantee the DOM will have rendered if I do this in unrendered, but I can't guarantee that this select element will be there. Maybe I can. Yeah, let me move that to unrendered and see if things just work. This is a lot of guesswork right here, but no, I think this multi-select widget should be able to render on an empty field, so they can be independent of whether or not the data has come back from the server. So let's take a look there. Alright, welcome to the new viewer. If you have any questions about web development or comments about the project, I'm glad to do sort of an AMA kind of chat session. If you're interested in getting involved in open source, I can offer some sort of example projects where some help is needed and we can get you up to speed pretty quick. Okay, so we still got this, now we got a placeholder, it's not defined yet. That's a little bit better. At least it's a step in a slight improvement. easy to diagnose and fix. Alright, so the residents are rendering, but we still have this chasing issue with the data. But here's one way to get around it. So this is running as soon as the template is rendered, regardless of whether this is not available. But I can wire this up as a dependency. If I move all of this into an auto run, let's see if this works. So we'll declare an explicit dependency. This is a little bit kludgy, actually. If I recall, there's not an argument here to pass in the options. It just takes a pre-rendered sort of select list, but maybe I'm wrong there. But anyway, what I'm doing here, and put that in the right place, is just putting a reactive data source inside of this reactive context. And anytime this reactive data source changes, regardless, I think if we do anything with it, it'll rerun this code. And what I want to do now is I want to make sure that these resident options exist. There we go. To render the slim select. Hopefully we're getting in the right direction here. So you can see the trade-off of moving this to the server side. Damn. It's a little frustrating. There we go. Resident, things are working now. I just had to manually refresh. But the key thing has been accomplished. Oh, no, I clicked on the add activity form. No, I didn't. What's going on here? Let me check the slim select docs. Well, if it can't find the element, then the API, slim select API doesn't really matter here. Close this down because it's confusing me. Man. There's two layers here that make this complicated. One is I have this new feeling template that's rendering. And then within that, there's an auto form that's rendering. And when this, then the unrendered event for this template doesn't look to make sure that this auto form is rendered. I'm not sure this is a problem in Vue. I think the Vue might make sure all of its children are rendered before firing these rendered events. For some reason, Blaze and auto form don't seem to do that. Now, wait a minute. Let me just double check that this is not just running erroneously. That could be the source of those console errors, but I don't think so because the select widget is not. Oh yeah, it's working. Okay, so let me just hard refresh this. Clear cache, refresh. No. So it is type select, but it's just in that millisecond when it tries to render it. So let me think here. The other option is to not do this as a server method, but have a client, sort of shared client library. I don't want this code to live in two places. They get out of sync. It's already demonstrated to be a problem. The Meteor framework, so to speak, doesn't really offer, that I recall, clear pattern for shared components. Whereas in Vue, I could just define this select widget as a component and use it in both places. And it can manage its own data and stuff like that. At a loss here, where to go from here. The code that I need to share is essentially already on the server. We don't want to deprecate the slim select because it's actually a useful module. It seems like I'm using that on this residence page. Where is this? Activities by resident. And it's not a slim select. I was hoping to find a place where the slim select is working so I could see if there's a previous example of how to sort of work around this asynchronous problem. And here's a little bit of a frustrating aside. Oh wait, it does have data. Label and options. So the first thing is I have to make sure this element is visible. So one way I can do that is I have to wait till this auto form is rendered. New feeling form. So I have to put this back. this out or just delete it. Force it if I do. Okay. Let me see if this is even the right comment syntax. I think we're just gonna use this type of commenting. Yeah. It just doesn't know it's like an HTML template. Another thing that'll improve when we switch to Blaze, away from Blaze into Vue.js is the auto-completion support in the IDE is going to be improved. It's going to be nicer. I believe we were looking for an ID of resident ID. Okay, so this should always be there now. Should have no problem, no more problem. Oh. Input. Just double check my HTML syntax here. Type is select. Okay, and so I'm just looking for the name. So I should be able to find that. Yeah, alright, good. And seems like it's not going to complain anymore. Now that we're past this. Remember, I'll have to figure this out if you can use these curly braces. I know that it's a little bit of an issue in Vue. I think it's like this though. We'll just string interpolation here. Inside the value, we need to set the value to any existing. Actually, this is unnecessary. We're never going to pre-populate this value, so that's probably unnecessary. Let me come back to that. Actually, when we go to resident, add feeling, we do provide that context, so that was why that was there. Yeah, it'll be auto-filled. Alright, so that should be good. Now slim select should let us pass in the data. I might have to just change the keys and values. I'll do it in 3 places. I'll reuse this in 3 places. So I'll put the slim select on the add activities modal, add feeling modal, and resident select on the activities page. Label options is the way the data should be structured. I'm almost positive this didn't used to have that ability, but maybe I'm mistaken. So let's go back to this method. Now I don't want it to run this function every time the autoform renders, because this autoform unrendered happens for every autoform. That's why we have to do this conditional here. A little bit inefficient, but I'm going to log these again just to take a look. Yeah, that was nice. New feeling uncreated. So we have them in an op group. Now this is a standard form. Slim Select invented their own API. Label options now. The options. So I just changed op group to label. Options looks. Using text. And these are key values because I have an internal identifier and a label, which we need this internal identifier. This API is kind of that's so common that you separate. You have it, values and labels essentially. Text. Can guess that the text goes in the internal, that I can apply a value here. But that should really be documented. Let's try it out. So that's what I have here. The value and label, I just need to change the, text to label, or label to text, and op group to label. Man. Let's do it. Break the other section. So data equals. Let me make sure this data are available here. And AutoForm doesn't give you a way to sort of target a specific form rendering. You have to look at all the auto forms rendering, and then get a property. So that's unfortunate. And for whatever reason, this data doesn't seem to be propagating into the form. Actually, this might, now that I think of it, this might do the trick that the resident options will be available before this auto form renders. I might be able to, what's it on my clipboard? Might be able to get by with this now. Back to auto form. So let's see really quick. The auto form will render. It'll have the select right off the bat because the data are there. And I just need to put them back in the right form. This. All right. Let me do a hard refresh though, because that's been working previously. But clear to cache as it breaks. Okay, so that was it. So, not too bad. I don't know really how to summarize that. Essentially, since I moved away from having subscriptions in on-created event, and rather now fetching method asynchronous data from the server, in the client, the template, I was still waiting on those subscriptions to complete, which were just basically this was true immediately because there were no template level subscriptions. And so that everything in here, the form would render without the data available, and I was getting that problem of, anyway. This AF field input can't really render until the data are there. I believe that's the problem. It won't even render an empty select. That might have been what it was. So slim select was, even though this auto form can render, the form field might have a different timeline. I don't know how to really get a visual insight into this, how this works. Still not 100% positive this is going to be bug free. But now we wait for the auto form to render, make sure it's the new feeling form, and then render a slim select. I don't have to pass the data in via the slim select API. I'm not really digging this API. The overall, though, this slim select has been one of the nicer multi-select options we found. When we move to Vue.js, I suspect we'll have a little bit better experience. Particularly, we'll probably use Vuetify. 2 days ago, this is relatively recently updated. I should check that our npm dependency is updated here to 1.18.14. So now I just need to repeat this process to the other templates since we're using shared component. 1.18. Okay, so we can actually update this. Well, it should be automatically up to date. Pretty close. Yeah. All right. No need. Let's see. Add feeling. Yeah, that looks good. Go to the resident page. Add feeling, and they're already selected. And slim select renders. Great. So now we need to do this for add activity. It's working, but it's not using the shared method, shared approach. So new JS doesn't need to import these anymore. Clean that up. The helper got simplified, so I'll sort of mirror this, and the auto form looks good. I think I've cleaned up everything I need there. So residents. All right, here's the fun part: cleaning up code. Well, there is a resident name group by home. Oh no, this is actually. We want to leave this. And this is still correct. Activities. Form.js, this is the one we can clean up. Resident select options. Boom. We'll come back to that in a second. Still doing some client-side data prep. Trying to move most of that to the server, but okay. Clean that selected feeling up. I'm just going to copy and paste most of this. Oops. So then what is it? In the form HTML. Let's try that. I think that should do it. Template instance not defined. Form.js 6. Yeah, this is just a convention we've carried on for a while because of the shiftiness of this, and in these helpers and things, we need reference to the template instance. So we might, I don't know, we should just keep it consistent. I think it's a little clearer in Vue because this always refers to the Vue instance. I don't know, or then you don't use this at all. So just cleaner syntax. All right, come on, do it. Right, it's working. Good, good. Now I believe we can go over here and improve this select widget, hopefully, or just leave it alone. I don't know. What do you think here? I might just leave this one alone. We don't necessarily need this limb select here, but it might be nice as long as it, well, if these don't look drastically different. Here we have an example. Not drastically different. We have mixed field types on this form. I'll commit these changes and I'll just think for a second whether or not I want to make that other improvement. So this will just clean up. This somehow was left over from a rebase. Came from here. And this is lint, pretty much a lint commit. I'll take it though. I like getting the code in this project to be consistent, but these two are both relating to using a shared method in 3 places now, so that's really good for consistency. And just one more thing I'll say is that I think it was a mistake for the Slim Select project to use that custom API, because to the extent possible we should really be aligning with browser APIs, and the browser API uses opt group and values or whatever the structure is that's coming back from this shared method. So when anyway, I don't have it up anymore. When someone's like deviated from that, that means it's not congruent with that. And projects that are using the browser APIs, some more native APIs for populating a select, that code has to be changed. And it's even not congruent, I believe, with Slim Select can render on a select widget with option groups and values, and I can use that same structure to populate at least this autoform. I believe autoform didn't invent its own API here. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe the code was written just for the autoform field input API. And it just uses the same semantics as the HTML. Alright, well, anyway. Let's get these commits done. Okay, where are we at? For resident select options. So what we got here, make sure resident options are available. This pull request is getting so close. Let's see what else. I haven't pushed these yet. I don't want to get too many more commits in here. Obviously the code needs to be stable and complete. It's also important just to keep these pull requests kind of like brief and to the point. And I'm already getting kind of sprawling. 37. Granted, we're sort of remodeling the app, so it's going to touch about every major view and route. This is an assumption. I don't know if we're ready to make that assumption. So most people in the QA do that. They impose, they imply or believe features are implied, but it's just more or less comes as a feature request masquerading as a quality assurance issue. So you just got to take it all with a grain of salt. Because it might be that we want admin users to be able to remove admin rights, just like they can add admin rights. If otherwise, you'd have permanent admins. Privileges. Think about it. All right, so back to this initial testing scenario. I think this user groups assignment is working generally as expected. So this user is only assigned to Tamila, and they can only see Tamila. So this is her scenario. So I believe it's working correctly. Which she assigned it to Onila instead. And these are randomly generated names. So this is what the scenario I want to test now too. Granted admin rights with no groups assigned, they should see everything. So first I'll revoke the user's groups. I'll remove it from Tamila and save. Now if I go to homes, they see nothing. Right. Now we'll grant them admin rights. And see the homes. And they should see everybody. Onila, Tamila, and Puistola. And so the same thing should now basically apply here. Tamila 2, Tamila 3. Yeah, they see everybody. All the homes in those three groups. And then we're sharing code, so this is going to be working as expected. Activities, we should see all the residents here because we're again sharing the code. Not the UI widget, and they see 55 pages, so 550 roughly. Now if let me think here. If I just revoke admin for this user, they don't see anything. Okay, so that worked immediately. It was reactive, in fact. Add them to a group like Tamila. I save. This part's not reactive, but they, if I refresh, can see 23 pages of activities, so that's good. It's a little bit of imprecise testing. I've added them to two groups now, and they see 35 pages, so that's good. If I add them now to the admin with those two groups, they should see 55. Yeah, I think this is working. I mean, this is the main thing. We don't want to overwhelm the staff with too much data, too much information. But at the same time, we do want certain users to have access to all the information. I believe it's more or less working. So if they're an admin right now, they can edit or remove their admin privilege. They still see that until we refresh. Alright, well, it's not fully reactive UI. But it's not often that you toggle somebody's admin status. Cool, welcome to new viewers in the room. If you got any comments on the code, feel free to hit me up in chat. Any questions or just ideas about web development in general, data visualization in particular. If you want to highlight a line of code on the screen, you can use the chat command !highlight and the line number and add a comment. I just enabled the Twitch highlighter. I forgot to enable that when I kicked off this live stream. It'll actually highlight whichever line of code in a not too obtrusive shade of green, not too bright. It's a little eye-catching, and it'll add your comment right there. So if I'm missing a semicolon or whatever you want to point out, or if you have a question about how the code's working, notice a bug, I'd be glad to see your highlights. Alright, so let me take a look. So I believe this scenario with no groups assigned to the user, they should see everything. So double check this one more time. I think that's an erroneous report. So let's look on the homes. So this is an admin user. No, they're not admin right now. They're assigned to 2 groups. So make them admin. Try taking no groups. So what happens with the admin? Tamala onella puistola. Now remove the group assignments. Actually, that is the case. Let me refresh my UI because it seems like they should have 2 groups. They are not the case. So there's a little bit of bugginess in our group assignments. I select. I'm not showing the admin screen on the live stream. It's just too much of a hassle to toggle an incognito view just using a separate browser window. But in the settings section, when you're an admin, you just have this users management section where you can edit people's, toggle their admin status, which we're wondering if that should be a feature or not. Assign groups, and this is using this slim select widget, which is also a little misbehaving slightly, probably due to that same reactivity gap. Or so to speak, the asynchronous nature of the data coming to the client and the DOM rendering based on asynchronous data. Alright. But again, on this home screen, I see 3 groups, even though I have no group assignment, this current user here. So, whoops. I just think this report is not correct. Alright, without admin rights, then I've again tested this. The correct group is visible there on the homes page. Quick add feelings is what we've been spending the last about hour on. Yeah, so that's fixed now. And verify that they are the same in both places. And again, this is randomly generated data, so her data are going to be different than mine. So this works as expected. And open an issue for this. I think our QA is complete. I mean, it's about as confident as I can get in this code for now. So I'll review this with my partner Mario to see that it meets her expectations of how the user privileges should work. We will probably be able to merge this after 2 rounds of QA and a lot of kind of debugging and cross-cutting concerns. In a little over a month of development. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at this Vue pull request. I believe Shaylee has made some final changes based on feedback from earlier. This is outdated. This is outdated. And Shaylee made changes today. So let's take a quick look at the code in GitHub. This is another really big milestone, small step in the project. Only a few lines, 11 files changed. And, you know, kind of balanced it out with the lines of code. But basically, it's taken us in the direction of deprecating Blaze in favor of Vue.js. In order to do this, we had to upgrade a lot of our dependencies. In fact, the whole platform went from I thought we were at 1.7, but in a different pull request, I got merged, but apparently not. So 1.6 to 1.8. Oh, yeah, that's right. We did patch version update in the other pull request. 1.8. This is a big step for Meteor because they upgraded MongoDB in somewhere in between here. And that means the deployment also will need some care to be taken when we upgrade to make sure that our data doesn't get corrupted and the system doesn't crash. Just switching between these branches on the local dev environment causes problems. But here we are. This is the main thing. We have this Vue wrapper, Blaze. And we had to address certain things like how do we ensure that our localizations are still going to work, because this is a multilingual app. We moved all the HTML into a Vue component. We're just using this Blaze Vue component wrapper, and you specify the name, and you define let's see, this should be cleaned up. No. I see it's passing in there. Props. So I'll let that be. I don't know quite what that's for. The Blaze component front takes a modal object. Got it. Very cool. That way we can display modal is a Meteor wrapper for Bootstrap modals. That's probably what we're having to do, hand that off here. And use it in the click event. Okay, got it. So yeah, this modal.show, it's a Meteor package. We might be able to even deprecate in favor of just using standard Bootstrap modal dialogues, but in any case, we needed to pass it in as a prop. So I'm comfortable with that. And localization mixed in, so we're using kind of standard Vue, not nomenclature, but you just, when you want to share code between components, you do it as mix-ins. Prior to this, we were doing a little bit of our own type of stuff. Here you can see the mix-in in action. It's just going to take a string, like a localization key, and pass it to this localize function, which wraps I18 in, which was, where the heck was that? Tap I18 in, double underscore, which looks it up, and depending on the user's locale, will bring back the message. This HTML is roughly the same. That was one of the things I appreciate that Vue does, is it doesn't invent its own markup language, it just uses HTML. Yeah, pretty much it's still compiling behind the scenes, but the syntax and semantics are pretty much HTML. You can, I think, still use JSX, and you can probably use mixed capitalization with these, but for our project we're going to be using just regular old HTML to the extent possible, with these sort of template interpolation, tags, and event handling, and Vue model binding, which we're not using here. Alright, good. So package JSON as ever is different, and here's the only difference in the requirements. Or to bring Vue and Vue Meteor trackers that Vue can borrow or build on Meteor's reactivity. I think overall this pull request has been reviewed several times. I've tested it locally. I'm not going to go too much in depth to the testing part, but I'm going to merge it. I may not even have to rebase. I might not have any conflicts. I think Git can just rebase the branch. My local branch user group assignment, I don't believe, is touching any of the things that Shaylee's branch is touching. I'll just say it one more time, that this is a big step for our project. So this alone, this pull request with the Meteor 1.8 upgrade, could probably justify going to a full significant version release. We're at 0.13. You know, we might need to do a 1.0 type release, because we're not really going to be backwards compatible by the time my pull request user group management is merged and this new Vue one is merged. So without further ado, let's go ahead and just merge this in. hopefully things will just continue to work. Shaylee's been doing really great work, very responsive to changes, change requests. There are some conflicts. Man. All right, let's see if I can do this rebase here. So what I'll have to do is switch to Shaylee's branch. It looks like I can pull changes down. Also switch to make sure our development is updated because I'm going to rebase development into this. Looks good. All right, let's think how to do this. So maybe I won't merge hers tonight. Of course. Damn it. This is actually not too bad, but this is a pain in the butt, the package lock. I should just destroy it and recreate it, apparently. Man. So let's check Meteor versions. Oh boy. I'll accept the incoming change on this. Pretty much just upgrading everything. It doesn't seem like anything gets lost in the shuffle. A couple things get added. We have to get rid of dimple. We're not using it anymore. It's for another task. We were using like 3, if not 4 charting libraries in this project. Oh, because each of them had nice parts and then deficiencies, and they probably had more deficiencies than the nice parts. It is the fragmentation of the JavaScript ecosystem. Then we switched over to Plotly.js, and basically all of our charts are now Plotly. So there's that. What other conflicts do we have? So I'm going to destroy package lock and rebuild that. So there's versions, release. Definitely going with the incoming change. I can't see why it didn't resolve that. Just whatever. Nice. Packages. Oh boy. Wait, that's the one I just. No. Okay, here. JavaScript. Yeah, very cool. So those are all looking good. What I'll run is just npm install. Part of it is with this package.json, I think we're using different versions of npm. Finished upgraders. And so our, like, there's just some subtleties with where it's resolving packages. Package versions and maybe SHA, I don't know, but it's just constantly changing. So, package lock. Yeah, that should be good. Alright, so that was mainly just the conflicts in the dependencies. I'll give Shaylee a chance to review this one. So I'll open a pull request before merging. I'm not going to just merge that straight into hers. But it looks like in this next session, next time I'm on Twitch streaming, we should have a couple pull requests merged. If not, if I don't do it during that session, I'll probably do it between that session. We'll see how things go. Let me open this pull request here for Shaylee's work. So her branch is called Add View Components. Rebase develop into that Add View Component. Actually, let me think here for a second. What's going to happen? I'm just realizing when I rebase it, it shifts all of the commits to the branch. But her branch is still out of sync. I have to force push it. How the heck do I I wanted to give her a chance to review it, but we just have these duplicate commits now, and I'm in a different branch. Well, essentially what I'll do is I'll just do that again. I'll force push it. I'm not sure of how you can rebase a branch and another branch and then merge that rebase branch into the main branch. Nah, man, this is too meta. I'll just do it. Here we go. So I'll just run the same. So package lock, we just destroy it. Destroy. Delete. So we got that one back. So versions. So up here. Is there a button just at the top where I can say, no, you have to accept incoming changes for each of the places. That's cool though. I like having these buttons, it's handy. Release packages and finished upgraders. And basically, this rebase is quite a confusing topic. It seems like on the surface it should be simple, but when you start adding other contributors and other branches into the mix and origins, well, it's kind of fraught. So after like 3 years of messing up rebases, basically, I was able to learn from my colleague Tony at work a really crucial missing piece. Well, two of them. One is to make sure that your the branch you're rebasing is up to date from the upstream, like the origin. So that can cause problems. This steps 2 and 3 are typically documented in any rebase article or tutorial. You know how to rebase a branch into another branch, but they fail to mention what's going on when you're dealing with remotes, and particularly how to get your rebase changes if you've already pushed your local changes, for example, to GitHub prior to rebasing. Then you have your train tracks are misaligned. Now you're going to have a collision of your commits are in an older point in time and at a newer point in time from the perspective of the linear commit graph. So this git push will, and you'll see it here when I finish this rebase, my train tracks will be out of line. But the force push is what will reset those train tracks. So let me go ahead and double check. So I did versions, release, packages, finished upgraders, everybody's saved. I don't see any more. Stuff there. Alright, looking good. So now here's the problem. There's 19 commits. They're in the upstream, the old ones, the old train tracks, and now our new train tracks have been connected with the main line. 16 have been essentially what happens is that your commits get shifted. You know, they might be in the old state. Origin add Vue component. So all of Shaylee's commits more or less in the origin are back here, back in time from this linear commit graph. Then I rebased over here, and then it moved everything up front. But here's the local one, so I'm gonna have to just delete this branches. It's a mess up. I don't know how to merge those, but they match. They're the same commit. So what I'm demonstrating here is that now I need to tell Git to just use this local branch. Git push force. Normally people would do a force, but if you add this with lease option, if anything fails in the force push, it'll roll back the changes. So it's a safer alternative, because sometimes your remote branches are really busy. So here we go. This is going to go straight into Shaylee's pull request, more or less. So 5. Why? Oh, right, I'm in the wrong. So close this pull request. Delete this branch. Rebase develop. I don't need this anymore. I should delete it locally. Just to clean up as I go. Where's that? Delete branch via terminal. Peace out. Looking good. Now if I go to Shaylee's pull request, it's giving us both credit here because I did the rebasing. And the only thing blocking it now is that it needs a review. And basically, I've reviewed this several times. I've tested it locally, so I'm not going to go too deep into it. We're already at the 2-hour mark. I'd like to wrap up this session and get the result of Shaylee's work completed. One thing she hasn't been doing yet is linking issues with PRs. So it's 340. She self-assigned it, but I don't know if she knows of this little trick. On GitHub, you can say closes or fixes or a couple other ones. 340. It's 340. And what this will do is kind of cool. When I rebase and merge this, notice that we're open here. I'll confirm that. It's always a little bit nervous when I do that. I'm always a little bit nervous. But there we go. We're merged. I hop over here, and now this is closed. So it's just a good way to keep your issues and clean and everything in sync, the changes in sync. So again, moving forward with the project, I'll have to check my user group assignment to see if there's some rebasing needed there now. Mainly this package JSON. I have 4 minutes before 2-hour mark. I'm gonna fix this. Oh, I better not, because it's gonna be all sorts of things going on in the 1.8 upgrade. I'll fix this in my spare time. This is all my spare time, but anyway, it's pretty late here, so we'll wait to get some more feedback. That this user group assignment feature, pretty broad feature, touching a lot of the lines of code, cross-cutting our whole system, It's working as expected after 2 QA rounds and many commits. Probably try to get that merged this week and move on to some more of these issues. Making a 1.0 release probably pretty soon. So yeah, this has been a continuation of the live coding series, creating a well-being application monitoring tool with JavaScript. There we go. Our website's up and running now. We got it migrated. We're going to work on translating it pretty soon. Hopefully soon we'll be getting back into some of the data visualizations, the more exciting points in development, and maybe be doing some Vue.js work. So look forward to seeing more people in the chat, and thank you very much for the people who are viewing it now. If you're on YouTube watching this video, feel free to leave me any questions or comments in the comments section, and I'll respond to you pretty promptly. Trying to do these live code sessions about once or twice a week, so maybe I'll see you guys around. Alright, y'all, well, have a great day and see you around.